Shabbat Shalom. Someday, I'm going to name my rock band Tohu Vavohu. Because a rabbi with a rock band, that name means desolate and void and comes from the first verses of the Torah, just feels fitting. Or maybe it's because as a mom of 3 children with a full-time job, living through a pandemic, there are no 2 words in our sacred text that I connect with more right now. We know that our Torah begins with God creating heaven and earth. But before we get to the acts of creation, we are first given a description of what God initially encounters. We are told that the earth is tohu vavohu, a strange turn of phrase. Rashi tells us that this bizarre expression means desolate and void and is meant to confer a sense of astonishment and amazement at just how empty the space was. Other commentators debate whether this was emptiness or a sense of sadness in the space, or whether this is proof of God being able to create the universe from nothing. It's also possible that tohu vavohu is meant to signify the chaos that existed before creation. Because regardless of whether God's creation starts from bupkis or not, we know that what God truly produces is order. An organized structure and system to our world. Specific days and nights, each with a clear beginning and ending, various categories of water, animals, plants, each having its own rhythm of creation and role within the framework that is established. As Rabbi Yitz Greenberg explains, the Torah's narrative of creation calls our attention to rhythms that the Lord has embedded in the unfolding universe. The world is moving, first of all, from chaos, tohu vavohu, to order, Shabbat, where everything is completed and in its proper place with no clashing forces or conflicts between creatures. The world works and has the potential for rest because of the order that God has established within it. Order calm the chaos, and we constantly strive to emulate just a little of God's OCD. We search through stores for various little boxes and containers to appropriately hold all of our belongings. We hire professional organizers to make our closets and kitchens more efficient and tidy. We buy whiteboards with multiple colored markers to write up weekly schedules that will tell everyone in our household where to be and when throughout the week. We strive to make our micro worlds as systematized as God's. We hope that we too can create order out of the tohu vavohu swirling around each of us. Even though, deep down, we are aware that we lack the control and capacity to create as the omnipotent and omniscient divine displayed during those first few verses of the Torah. In reality, there is disorder all around us. Whether it is in the clutter in our apartments, in the miscommunication over emails, or in the world that is marred by the plight of the current pandemic. How can we assert control when we are powerless? How can we create order when we are surrounded by chaos? If we continue on in our text, in our parsha for this week, we might find one answer. God tells human beings to peru or vu, to be fruitful and multiply. No. It's not in procreating that we will find order. Certainly anyone with even one child can tell you that having children doesn't do much to squash the chaos in one's life. Rather, these words are the first mitzvah that God gives humans. Over the first few weeks of religious school, the 7th grade students and I have been learning about mitzvot. We began by defining the term. A mitzvah, as all our students can now tell you, is not simply a good deed. It is a commandment, an obligation that is placed upon us by God. Yes, despite our colloquial use of mitzvah as a good deed, something that's nice to do for someone else, that is not the meaning of this term. We are commanded by God to live in a certain way, to follow certain rules, to engage in certain acts. But while following commands might give us some order, it is not something that we are all comfortable with. As modern, free people, it is rare for us to accept that we are commanded to do anything, and common for us to feel prickly about that idea. Obligated? Well, maybe we're more comfortable with that term, but it probably depends on the act and who has made the pronouncement about it. As liberal Jews, we struggle even more with commandedness. Some of us don't keep kashrut, enjoying a lobster roll on the beach or a cheeseburger for dinner at times. Most of us are not shomer Shabbat. We watch TV, we send emails, we may even ride the subway on the day of rest. We shrug off the idea that these rules are commandments and pick and choose the mitzvot that work with our lives and suit our Jewish identity. We don't think so deeply about what it means to ignore the other commandments, since we have yet to feel any consequences from not saying Birkat Hamazon, the blessing after eating. This means that we, like the 7th graders did, have to be more careful and consider the purpose of mitzvot. For us, it cannot be that mitzvot are only about obeying God's rules. In the same way that we pick the mitzvot that work for our modern sensibility, we must also pick a purpose for all the mitzvot. We must learn and discover an impetus around the acts that we do, and even the ones we choose not to do. So what if we reframe mitzvot around the ideas of relationship and connection? As Rabbi Forrest writes in the introduction to his book, The Laws of Kashrut, the purpose of understanding a mitzvah is not to comprehend what is accomplished with the mitzvah, but rather to perceive the lessons to be drawn from it. God does not need us to care for God's creatures. God has countless means at God's disposal. The purpose of the mitzvah of chasing the mother bird before taking her eggs or chicks is that we internalize feelings of compassion. If we reframe mitzvot, our commandments, our obligations, around the lessons we will learn from them, they may resonate for us in new ways. In this way, it becomes less about the act itself and more about how our behavior and the lives of others are changed by the act. And we must also remember that mitzvot are not only about God. As our 7th grade students have also discovered, each mitzvah is an act that is bein adam la'atzmo, between a person and themselves, bein adam la'Adonai, between a person and God, and of course, bein adam lechavero, between a person and others. While at any given moment we might only be thinking about how a mitzvah fits into one of these 3 categories, each of these 3 elements is present and part of every mitzvah we engage in. Through mitzvot, we explore how to behave and interact with our world. Like God creating order through creation, We can create a sense of order by going through the obligations of our tradition. While we, modern liberal Jews, might not feel the same sense of commandedness by God that others do, we do still feel a sense of obligation to a higher authority. The authority of peoplehood, a commitment to other individuals, the ethical obligation to be part of the community. We deeply believe that we need to leave this world more compassionate, more kind, and more whole than the way we found it. Mitzvot help us to create an individual rhythm to live by and help our community to stay grounded and coherent. Mitzvot can help us to create order where there is chaos, but only when we remember that mitzvot require us to be cognizant of not only our connection to God, but our obligation to one another. Being organized comes from knowing that everyone has a place, and a place must be made for each individual. Turning tohu vavohu into a meticulous, beautiful world assumes that we understand how to pull ourselves away and make space for those who need it more. When we forget about the ways that mitzvot connect us with one another, we are in danger of losing the ability to maintain order and rhythm. We see it time and time again and in our text, in our world. When Cain's commitment to caring for his brother is overrun by jealousy, trouble ensues. When the builders in Babel were enticed more by their individual relationships with God and stopped noticing those lifting bricks with them, the tower crumbled. When we are more stubborn about our own comfort and personal freedom than we are thoughtful about the health and safety of all of those around us, we are stuck in a troublesome, chaotic, pandemic world. Yes, we strive for order in our chaotic and seemingly unyielding world. But we cannot achieve that until we remember that we are one another's keepers. We cannot create order as God did. We cannot find the calm refuge from the chaos until we learn to truly care for one another and place each other's needs before our own. We cannot turn tohu vavohu into the peaceful Shabbat we desire until we find a way to embrace the mitzvot that are laid before us. Shabbat shalom.